The jailer is the key. Kill him, and you'll be free. Shake your head. Nod your head. It's time to go.
Look at what I'm offering. This can be your home.
What happens when you take dual-stick arcade shooting, mix it with basic hack-and-slash combat, and design some cool-ass boss fights? You get Furi, baby, a 2016 release by the game bakers for PS4 and PC. Furi is a simple game, but one that is challenging and satisfying for those who can take a beating. There isn't a lot of story here, so I'll do my best not to spoil what's there, but the gist of it is that you are this guy, Pimp Daddy Long Dick. Locked up for reasons yet unexplained when you are freed by Bugs Bunny's cracked out cousin. But in order to truly escape, you must first defeat 10 guardians, all lying in wait to stop you. From here on out, you'll get the sense that something more is going on beneath the surface as you slice and shoot your way to freedom, and that the reasons for your imprisonment ain't so black and white. It's like Shadow of the Colossus in the sense that what's actually happening in the story isn't explained until the very end. And all I'm gonna say is that though I wasn't super shocked when everything was revealed, the story did do a good job at keeping me guessing as to what was happening. Now, one of the first things I noticed when I booted this game up was the artistic resemblance to Afro Samurai. And as it turns out, all the characters were designed by Afro Samurai creator Takashi Okazaki, if I pronounced that properly. Sorry if I didn't. But it's not just that, they also mix visual elements from games like Metal Gear Solid, No More Heroes, and God Hand. It even says so on their page. And all these elements come together perfectly in my opinion, and I say that as somebody who's a huge fan of 3 of those 4 series. I would also like to talk about the game's soundtrack, because it is top notch. It's composed by various techno artists that I will list on the screen, and it fits perfectly to the setting and tone of this game. It's a bunch of dark synthetic techno tracks that build up atmosphere and tension to the situation without ever taking center stage. Some part of me actually wants to buy this game's soundtrack, and that's rare for me. Now when it comes to combat, the idea is straightforward. You have 2 methods of attack. The first is your pistol that you can shoot rapidly by pointing your right stick in any direction, and your sword to attack enemies close up and personally, which you will be required to do during close combat sections. Also, your sword and pistol have charge attacks, both of which have their own combat advantages. As for defense tactics, you have a dash move for dodging that could also be charged for additional distance, and a block move that, if done successfully, gives back a bit of lost health, even sometimes parrying their attack, leaving them wide open for a counter. Again, like Shadow of the Colossus, the only combat in this game is the boss fights. You must defeat the boss by depleting all their lives before they deplete yours. Now, you only get 3 lives for the duration of each battle, but fortunately for you, every time you take an enemy's life away, you regain one of your missing lives. What I like about this mechanic is it never makes you feel completely hopeless, because there's always that opportunity to make a comeback if you can just survive that round, and it's not extended to the enemy, so you don't have to worry about the boss regaining lives and dragging out the fight to ridiculous lengths. Now, that's not to say that the boss fights are easy. They actually don't fuck around, as they will pull out all the stops to oppress your black ass. As you deplete each life from the enemy, they will become more aggressive in their attack patterns, use more powerful attacks, and even change their strategy completely. And this is what makes the boss fights so great. They're always changing in some way, shape, or form, so you can never really get comfortable with any method of attack or any strategy, because you will always be forced to change things up. The variety between the bosses is pretty impressive too. There's a time manipulating old guy, skinny big daddy, and a chick who has a laser helmet and a serious BDSM fetish. Those are just a few examples. I wouldn't say they are so different that you won't find some similar attack patterns among them, but they are different enough that each one will challenge your abilities in unique ways, and make sure the game never gets too boring or repetitive. When it comes to the difficulty in this game, it can feel a little bit cheap at times, but I found this not to be the case, as whenever I got stuck, because I either couldn't dodge a certain wave of attacks or do sufficient damage to the enemy fast enough, it was just a matter of rethinking my strategy or getting down a dodge pattern, and in the end, I found the difficulty to be fair for the most part, minus a few exceptions I'll talk about soon. But now that I'm done suckling the sweet tea of Furi, let's talk about the things I didn't like in the game, and it's really just a couple of small gripes, if anything. First off, between each boss fight there are these walking segments that serve to give you expository dialogue on the next boss you're gonna fight, and they do a good job at giving you some context behind your next foe and building up some pre-fight suspense. The problem is that they are unskippable and you're forced into a slow walking animation. They do have an auto walk feature that does make the character walk for you so you can check your Facebook or masturbate in the meantime, but that does still mean that you have to wait. And it's one of those things that feels longer than it actually is because of the slow walking speed. It's fine if you only plan on playing the game once, or are like me and you just like re-experiencing story bits over and over, but it's something that could become annoying for others during multiple playthroughs, so it's worth mentioning. Unless you just want to play practice in speedrun mode after you beat the game. I was also not a fan of the final wave attacks. Essentially, when a boss is on its last life, it will do one final mega wave of attacks that you must survive in order to finish off the boss. However, in the later stages of the game, it becomes impossible to survive without dying at least a dozen times, because you get barraged with so many attacks at once that you die before even getting a full understanding of what happened, causing you to have to replay earlier sections of that boss over and over and over just to be able to get to that end part and hopefully get down the pattern before you die and have to do it again. There were a couple times that I got to the end of the boss fight on my first try just to be obliterated by the boss's final attacks. There were at least 3 times where I kept dying at the final attack so much that I can do every section before it perfectly. And during 2 of those occasions, I did those parts so much that I even started sucking at them again because I just kept getting frustrated and didn't want to put in the effort anymore. It feels like a cheap difficulty spike that comes out of nowhere and fucks with your intense boss fight, but it also adds to the overall excitement when you finally beat them, so it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Speaking of edges, I really hate the Edge. He's one of the last boss fights in the game, and the only one I didn't like because he just feels flat out cheap. He can take away a life in just 4 hits, and the only effective form of defense is blocking. However, the window to successfully block is tiny, so the whole match just feels like a repetitive QTE that you must succeed in order to survive. All while trying to hit him when he can dodge anything unless the circumstance is just right. Whereas all the other bosses, minus their final attacks, all feel like they give you at least a little leeway to mess up and use different strategies to make it through. Here, you have to do things the boss's way to near perfection or lose. It's fucking bullshit. But when it's all said and done, Furi is a fast-paced joyride that challenges skills and reflexes you may have thought you never had, has awesome character and art design, is easy to understand and enjoy but hard to master, and rocks a bombastic soundtrack. And in the end, isn't that what makes an awesome game? I think it does.